So I found myself mourning my therapist a lot. And it's really difficult. I don't know how to reconcile with missing her so much. So let me get into it, all right? Because losing her was just, I don't know, it was traumatic. Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel, Dina J from Around the Way. So I've been thinking, I had a therapy session, earlier today, and I will tell you that today my therapist is great. You know, I have had the same therapist for the last 3.5 years, and she has really helped me. And before her, I had another therapist who I suddenly lost due to an unexpected death back in January of 2021. And it was the most traumatic thing for to happen at that time, because I was in the thick of my divorce. I was working through all the traumas that I endured in my divorce and unpeeling the onion of all of the reasons that I ended up in the marriage that I ended up in, and family history and generational trauma and you name it, right? And then to have suddenly lost my confidant, it felt like the world shattered when she passed away. So thinking about her, I just wish sometimes that I can just see her, speak to her, hold her, just hug her. She was the warmest person that I needed in my life during that time. And I'm supposed that God probably just placed her there for as long as I needed her in order to work through a lot of the traumas that I endured. But man, it was hard losing her. Let's talk about therapy and how I even started. I will say that I really regret not knowing about therapy and how beneficial it was to me before like my 30s. I wish that I was in therapy since I was a teenager. Like, I would have been able to work through so many things, from my childhood trauma to my teenage trauma, had I been in therapy. And it's something that I wish I would have had way sooner in my life. So if you're a parent, I don't know the age range. I need to look at the age range of my audience sometimes. But if you're a parent and you have, children of a young age, or even, teenagers or whatever, like, if you even question if they need therapy, put them in therapy, find the right therapist, and figure out what it is that, they need to solve for, what they're struggling with, and get them in therapy. It is the absolute best thing that I've experienced in my emotional and mental health. And I really wish I would have gotten into it sooner. But beyond that, I unfortunately started therapy before I was getting married. So I started my therapy when I was in my serious relationship with my ex-husband. And I knew, like, we were struggling through so many communication things. I was also very insecure. And I had reason to be, because he was cheating on me and I didn't know, but I was insecure. I was very unsure of myself. I had low self-esteem. And the unfortunate part that I say unfortunately for is because I started therapy because I wanted to be a good wife. And I knew that I needed to work through things, right? And my first therapist, she was not the best therapist, I will say, for me at the time. Like, she was good, but I didn't necessarily get my needs met from a deeper, like, family trauma, generational way. And I recognized that early on. So I decided to continue to look for another therapist. And then that's when I landed with Dr. Yvonne Patterson. And oh my God, from the first session, I just knew that she was the person for me. She, of course, asked me, like, why am I here? What am I looking for? What am I working through? Or what do I need to figure out? So we talked about those things. And I almost want to say that immediately I was able to start working on some really childhood trauma topics. And when I started going to Dr. Patterson, I was already married. So I had just entered into my marriage. I was probably like 5 months into my marriage, and we were having so many difficulties. And I'm like, dang, like we did couples therapy, we did all the things, premarital counseling, we did all the things. So at no point did we just enter into marriage blindly. Like all the things were done. But there were some things on the other side that I was not privy to: infidelity, just a lot of emotional abuse, and all of these things that I was enduring. And to me, at the time, they seemed like something you just go through in marriage, but the way that it was debilitating my self-esteem and my mental health and my emotional health, I started to seek therapy in a different way, because I'm like, I don't like how I'm feeling in this, and I don't know what to do, right? And I normalized the behavior that I was internalizing and receiving from my ex-husband way too much. So there was something there, and I knew that that was not right for me. So when I started to go to Dr. Yvonne Patterson, there were so many things happening that she just kind of took me step by step, and we started from my childhood. Like she was one of those people, like, let's go all the way back. And she, it had me explain my family history, and it was with her that I really dug into a lot of my mother wounds and my father wounds, and meeting my sisters and the dysfunction within our relationships, and my communication style and my communication needs, and how in areas I didn't communicate well, or, how in general I treated myself and others, right? So we started to go into that. And it was through her guidance and her like pulling things out of me that I was starting to realize that my marriage was not a healthy one for me, and that my ex-husband was not good to me. And there was never a time that she said, you should, or whatever. She would just ask me probing questions and ask me what I felt about certain things, and she would see my reaction to certain things, and then it would prompt her to write her notes and then suggest certain things. And I would always leave there very insightful, feeling like there was a revelation made to me, and then also questioning whether I needed to be in my marriage, whether being by myself or being away from this person was better for me, because being by myself was better than what I was receiving, right? So with her, there was just so much that I unpacked. And she also introduced me to EMDR therapy, which was so life-changing for me. EMDR is eye movement desensitizing and reprocessing, right? And through eye movement, I'm not a licensed therapist or anything of the sort. So, but essentially they use movement and eye motion to walk you through your trauma and test out how it shows up in your body. And I went through several sessions of that with her, and it was like a light switch went out. And that is when I started to really start digging deep into certain things within my family trauma, within my marital trauma, and then work through that, right? And while there were some instances where I was still really anxious and still responding, like, with therapy and behavioral things, like you kind of have to go through them until you stop going through them, or until you learn other ways of coping or better ways of managing certain situations. So in that regard, I was really pleased with how my body and my mind was shifting towards certain topics that really would upset me and hurt me and have me like all worked up when we talked about them or when I thought about them on my own. So working through those things with her really helped manage a lot of the things that I was experiencing in life, and then heal a lot of past stuff, and then work through some of the current things. So when COVID happened, I was still meeting with her virtually and all the things, and then all of a sudden her and I were scheduled for a session in January of 2021, and I couldn't get a hold of her, and it was not common for her to just not show up or not say something. So I automatically knew that something was up or wrong, or maybe a family member or family emergency happened. And then some weeks went by, and I still hadn't heard from her. So I'll say within like 2 or 3 weeks of her and I having our session scheduled and her not showing up, I learned that she died from a brain aneurysm suddenly. And I felt like the world was collapsing on me. It was the worst time for me to have lost her. Like I mentioned at the start of the video, like my marriage had ended. I had already moved out of my marital home. My son was 6 months old. So I was really adjusting to this new life of mine as a single mother, and definitely in the trenches of co-parenting and defining what that looks like, while also going through the divorce process. And of course, I will never know why, she was chosen to be taken from this earth at that time. But for me, I was selfishly angry, resentful, all the things, because I felt like the biggest confidant that I had was taken away from me. Let me tell you something about a good therapist. A good therapist will have you speaking so honestly about your feelings and about your observations about the people in your life, that you will find yourself saying things that you would never say to anybody else, not even your closest friends. And that was what therapy with her was like. And it was amazing to me, because I never even thought that I could be that honest with myself, and let alone a complete stranger to my life. But I think it's because she is a stranger to my life, but also she was really helping me out in a lot of ways. I was able to just feel safe with her and divulge everything that I had on my mind and in my heart. And it was working. That level of honesty, that level of work through, that level of ability to talk and just process things helps me immensely. And even today, like, it has made me a better communicator. It has made me more discerning. It has helped me identify things quicker that in the past I would, overshadow or make excuses for, or, ignore or look past, because I was trying to hold on to a false sense of hope in certain situations. And with her, I was able to knock some of that down. So that loss felt so much harder than I expected, because she knew parts of me that I didn't know myself, or she was able to pull parts of me that I didn't know, or I wasn't able to discover on my own. And she knew me better than anyone else did. Absolutely. Absolutely. Navigating therapy after loss like that was extremely difficult. I knew that I needed therapy, and I knew that I needed support, and I knew that I needed to keep going with this mental, emotional work. So I immediately started looking for a new therapist, and got some referrals from people that knew my therapist and that knew my style. I reached out to my couples therapist, and I really liked her too, but because she had counseled my ex-husband and she just had to make sure that, he was okay with her counseling me on her own. And it was just too much. So I decided not to go with her and just kind of start clean slate. And that was so difficult, because it was like dating, like, going through the process of interviewing someone new and, kind of retelling your story and starting anew and all of that. And it was daunting. It was intimidating. It was daunting. And I didn't want to do it because it wasn't her. It wasn't her, right? But I had to do it. I had to press forward. I had to find someone new. So the first therapist that I initially landed on, I was with her for about 3 months. No, maybe 4 months or so. And I tried my damnness, but she was horrible. She was horrible. She was horrible. Not because of therapy, but she really focus too much on faith for me, and I'm a faithful person. Like, I go to church, I'm about faith, but I didn't want my therapy to be based on the Bible or anything like that. Like, I didn't want that for myself. But beyond that, she was very disrespectful of my time. There have been times that she was late to session, or she would cancel on me like an hour before our session. There was a time that she was on vacation during our session, which is not a problem, but I didn't have her undivided attention. So I'm here boohoo crying about whatever situation, and then she's like, hey, stop doing that, or whatever, talking to whom, and I'm like, girl, I need your undivided attention. So needless to say, as much as I tried to give her chances. Like, her style was not for me at all. And then I started again. I interviewed and met with 2 more therapists after that. And then I was able to land on my therapist now, who was a referral from a friend of mine that I trust dearly. And, she was her therapist. So her and I met, and I was able to really get, feel a level of comfort. And what I can appreciate more than anything is that my now therapist allowed me to grieve my former therapist with her. So, I told her that I was looking for a therapist because mine passed suddenly, and she allowed me a couple of sessions to grieve her and talk through a lot of that loss that I really couldn't do with anybody else, because people be like, oh, I'm so sorry she passed away. And I don't think that certain people understood the level of loss that I was feeling, not having her in my life like that anymore, as my confidant, as my counsel, or as anything. So when meeting with my current therapist and talking about that grief, and then retelling my story, it just so happened that a lot of the things that I experienced, divorce, single motherhood, and things like that, she had also experienced. And that helped to make a connection between her and I, because she understood some of the things that I was experiencing in divorce and single motherhood, and co-parenting, and navigating very contentious relationships with your ex and things like that. So from that standpoint, I was really able to, just start to feel like I was planting a seed with my new therapeutic journey. And I was very cautious of not comparing my last therapist to her, because they had totally different styles, and nobody's going to be like somebody else, right? But what I think was helpful is that the universe, God, was able to put someone in my life in that time that can relate to what I was going through, right? And even though Dr. Patterson was able to really, really be good for my heart and soul, there were never times where I felt like she could relate to what I was going through, but it didn't matter, because she was such a good therapist that none of that relatability mattered to me, because she was really, working through the pages of my story with me. Whereas this, current therapist that I have, like, she is able to correlate some of the feelings and validate some of the things that I feel that are good, bad, or indifferent, as I navigate womanhood in this way. So I'm having an experience now with this therapist that is different, but it's good for me. And I'm able to be honest, and I'm able to feel at ease. And I've shared a lot of things with my current therapist, like I did with my last therapist, that other people wouldn't know or feel or would hear out of my mouth, because I don't trust everybody with certain parts of me. But I'm able to trust my current therapist with those parts of me, like I did my last therapist. And I'm really grateful for that. So, if you're in a journey at all, when it comes to therapy, or considering it, or wondering if it'll work, I will guarantee you that therapy in some capacity will help you if you feel as though you are struggling emotionally, mentally, or going through a tough time. Like, therapy doesn't have to be forever. Healing is also very up and down. Nothing is linear when it comes to this type of work. But I will say that staying in therapy does help me over time, because now that I'm a mother, there are so many new things that I'm experiencing, feelings, fears, doubts that I've never experienced before, and having a therapist in my corner to just talk through some of that with, and also give me some tools and some different perspectives about, versus like talking to a friend or a mother or a family member, just because they don't have the level of expertise when it comes to psychology and psychotherapy. You know, I am able to navigate life much easier than if I didn't have a therapist. So although I lost my therapist, I like to think that all of the desires of my heart, all of my secrets, all of my pain, all of the things that I shared with her and that she held close to her chest as my therapist and confidentially, now they're closer to God because she's now in heaven. And I sit well with that, but I'm also grateful that her good counsel with me is one that I'm able to cherish and I'm able to appreciate, so that I can really feel resolute in the work that I'm doing beyond her and I's relationship. So anyway, that's all. If you feel like you need therapy, go seek it. And if you want me to do a video about how to seek the right therapist, what to look out for, things like that, I'm happy to do that as well. These are the type of things that really, really speak to my heart, because we should be doing better as people. We should be feeling better as people. We should be happy with ourselves. We should feel good about ourselves. And to me, mental and emotional health is like a starting point for those things. So anyway, if my content is resonating with you, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And also, if you want to catch me on social media, here are my handles up on the screen. And I will catch you next weekend, all right? Bye, y'all.